that what happened is the wolf get blamed for trying to live. That's what happens. You don't blame the person, you blame the oppressor. Imperialism, white power is the enemy. Was the enemy first? I don't need to be saying. Snatched up the first African brothers here against our will. Is the enemy today.
The world don't need to see me.
Welcome to Africa Live on uhururadio.com. My name is Daysoon True.
I'm Timba Chavanda.
And in the studio, we have a very special guest, Liu Kwayete. Yes, and today's show is Black Girls Rap Wednesday, the wrap-up. So in the studio, like I mentioned, we have Liu. Liu, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Uhuru, my name is Liu Masho Kwayeta. I'm 17 years old, and I am the youngest member of the African People's Socialist Party.
Uhuru. As I understand it, can you tell me a little bit about what Black Girls Rap Wednesday is?
Yeah, Black Girls Rap Wednesday was, it started because maybe a week or two ago, at my school, an administrator, accompanied by a campus police officer, or resource officer, forced my friend to take off her head wrap, and then the next day forced me to remove mine as well. And we recognized that this was an attack on African culture and African women. So we decided we weren't just going to sit around and not do anything about it. We decided to start Black Girls Rap Wednesday, which was something that we created that was going to happen the following Wednesday, where everyone was going to come to school in their head wraps and dashikis and protest to this policy attacking African culture.
I know we have clips of this, and I don't know if we're going to go into those clips before we really get deep into what Lee has to say. But that's a very strong, positive, strong stance to take for a friend of yours, and just understanding that when you touch one, you touch all, and that's part of our the process of being in the party, and you've been being the youngest member and having so much savvy and understanding that, seeing one of your comrades in danger, or seeing the state impose certain, restrictions on, our culture, our Africanness, and being able to identify that at 17, that must be, you have to be such a resource in your high school to your student, to your friends, because that's not something that every high school student could sum up and identify, that this is a direct assault on, our culture as Africans, and and they get us like that. So I just want to commend you on that, and just kind of how did you get like that? How did you get like that? At such a tender age of 17. Bobby Hutton, if I'm not mistaken, he was the youngest member of the Black Panther Party, and he was but it's really good to see the youth involved in it. So how did you get like that?
It didn't happen overnight. I just studied the chairman a lot, and just be in the work and the movement 24/7, and being around so much political education every single day, and understanding what colonialism is, and understanding our current relationship with colonialism, and just studying really hard on African internationalism, and how that affects my life as well, and just really searching for an answer as to why the things are happening to African people around us, from attacking our culture by telling us to remove our head wraps, to being killed in the streets by the police, how all of that is connected. I really wanted to understand that. And so that's why I studied that so much. So basically just, studying the chairman and his works, and, reading up more than once on An Uneasy Equilibrium by the chairman, which is right there. that's just really what gave me a very good understanding of it. And then also, I got a deeper understanding of, you know, the politic behind what the African People's Socialist Party is, you know, founded on through attending the cadre intensive school. So yeah, that's what helped me get a really good understanding. And then it helped me get the strength to be able to implement that in my school and not just, you know, act like I don't know these things and really start teaching it to, you know, my peers on school campus. So.
Now this is, you're a member of African People's Socialist Party, right? And you're also a member of the African National Women's Organization. Can you give us a little information about the African National Women's Organization?
Yeah. The African National Women's Organization recognizes that, you know, though all African people are, you know, colonized and oppressed, there's a special oppression put onto African women. And, you know, it just really focuses on addressing that and not ignoring that in the struggle for, you know, the complete and total liberation of African people. And it also understands that it's not a separate fight, that it's also, you know, a consequence of colonialism and being colonized as African people. So that's mainly what ANWO recognizes and focuses on is contradictions and problems that African women face under colonialism.
I would like to thank Liu for that excellent introduction. Again, the number to call in to speak with Liu or Timber or myself is 727-565-1599. Again, that number is 727-565-1599. Right now, we're going to get ready and play the clip for the press conference that was held on last Wednesday.
Mind you that this clip that we're playing has 32,000 views. This is a clip of the press conference of Liu and Akile, two of our younger members, the youngest and one of the other youngest members of our organization, at Gibbs High School, in front of Gibbs High School, delivering such a powerful presentation. So,
to be a part of this press conference today. Like I said, I'm here on behalf of the African National Women's Organization telling African students to wear your wraps. Just a brief background on the school right here behind me. Gibbs High School was a black school in its conception, located in the south side of St. Pete. In recent years, the school abandoned the education of African students and invested majority of their resources into the performing arts magnet program that will come to exclude the majority of black students from discriminatory criteria and policies. African students at Gibbs have been under assault for many years now, the student dress code policy being among those attacks. Strategically targeting African people through means of which we dress, our clothes being one of the few things we can tie to the reclamation of our identities, are criminalized and enforced by high school administrators and so-called resource officers. The same resource officers that carry guns, tasers, and pepper spray, eagerly awaiting the moment they get to use them on us. These same resource officers that stick canines on our children in random illegal searches, beat our children resulting in serious injuries such as broken wrists, and more recently, as a tool of terror and intimidation to coerce a student to remove her head wrap. Knowing anything about African head wraps, they have been present in African culture for hundreds of years. Coming in various styles and colors, African people have been protecting our hair and expressing ourselves through this creative form. But despite that we use and what we use them for, the fact is that head wraps are deeply rooted in our culture. The same culture that was stolen from us at gunpoint 600 years ago when Africa was assaulted. Everything about ourselves has been taken away from us. Our names, our languages, our resources, and here we are on school campuses having to rebel against unjust set policies just to fill it out with ourselves again. We are saying no more. We are encouraging all African people to directly challenge this disgusting, criminalizing dress code policy by wearing your head wrap. African teachers and parents support these students by participating in the Black Girls Rap Wednesday. African boys, show your support, show your sisters your support. Join in this campaign that intends to attack the dress code policy that is attacking you. The dress code that affirms the cultural identity of African students instead of criminalizing them. The dress code is subjective, leaving it up to school administrators to determine which policy they will enforce at any given time. There is no difference between administrators forcing a girl to take off her head burqa in France. It is a violation of our cultural freedom. Let's demand Black community control of the police. They can't use the police in our communities and our schools to intimidate and terrorize our children. They can't be armed and ready to murder our children. They can't be this violent, oppressive tool on our campuses to uphold laws that in turn result in our subjugation. We have the right to hire, fire, and discipline those who hold a gun in our community under the banner of carrying out the law. Let's demand Black community control of we define our own curriculum designed in the interest of our community. We get to choose the teachers, create our own dress code, our own rules, etc. We demand the right to create an African National Women's Organization chapter on school campus that will tackle issues that disproportionately affect African students. And will advocate on behalf of African students to ensure that their voices are not smothered by policy or administration. And we will be here again tomorrow at 6 p.m. with the back to school night. Bringing this.
Welcome back to Africa Live on uhururadio.com. My name is Desun True.
I'm Timber Shabanda, and that was Akile Anayi from the African National Women's Organization speaking about at a press conference in front of Gibbs High School in St. Petersburg, Florida, about Wednesday. What is it, Leo?
Black Girls Rap Wednesday.
Black Girl Rap Wednesday. I can say that 3 times fast. But and also we have Liu. Go ahead, Liu. What's introduce yourself one more time.
My name is Liu Mancho Quayeta. I'm 17 years old, and I'm the youngest member of the African People's Socialist Party.
And what does your name mean?
Liu by itself means voice, but Liu Mancho Quayeta means voice of the Black Dawn.
Woo! Talking about revolutionaries right there. Voice of the Black Dawn, the voice of the future. Most definitely a Black voice of the future. Let's go. All right, go ahead, Dason. I'm sorry.
Liu, so I was at this press conference. And it was a very successful press conference. How many students would you say participated in this Black Girls Rap event?
In the actual event and protest that Wednesday, how many girls or how many students?
Students.
I'd say maybe about 50 students participated on campus wearing wraps and dashikis or, one or the other.
So what is the actual protest calling for people to do on Wednesdays?
So everyone was, told to come to school in either head wraps or dashikis or both, so because I guess some guys didn't want to wear head wraps, but so they could, participate by wearing their dashikis or, showing some form of support like that. And then what we realized on campus that day was, the principal and, a lot of administrators started trying to single out students and bring them to the office and, make them take off their head wraps. So we started instructing the students they were trying to get them to either take it off or call their parent to ask permission to wear their head wraps. So we told the students to basically say to the principal, I don't need permission to wear my culture and walk off and go to class. So that was what everyone was doing that day.
So you said there was about 50 students who participated in that first Wednesday. How have the majority of the students been responding to Black Girls Wednesday since the Rap Wednesday?
A lot of students are excited and, just really happy and supportive, about Black Girls Rap Wednesday. I don't think I've gotten too much negative feedback on it because if, people didn't participate, they definitely were saying they want to participate next Wednesday. I've gotten, messages from people from other schools and even other states saying that, they participated as well and, how excited they were about doing this. And I think it also empowered a lot of students to see that they had that power on campus and that, so many students were standing with them and that they could say, no, like I can wear and express my culture when I want to, and I don't need anyone's permission. So I saw a lot of students become empowered by doing that. So it was a really great turnout.
Also, I remember I was also at the press conference and I just remember seeing just the strength in those young African sisters out there, just behind you and Akile and also Jelani. And it was just so inspiring. Like you and the Kile were pulling young sisters to the side, pulling them all onto the press conference. We having a press conference about hair wraps, how you feel, and they united totally all the way. And I just remember that scene of having all those young African sisters behind you, and when saying Uhuru with the fist up, and that's just kind of a precursor to the future. Kind of, I think I'm looking at how things are going right now in the world, and I just see how your generation is stepping up to the plate, and it's being received so well. And like I said, that video has received 32,000 views. So I mean, I'm really proud of you. If for the sake of so I can quit rambling. But during the Wednesday when that was going on, what did you do in order to make sure that any African young woman who wanted to participate could participate?
How did I assist people in participating?
Yes, how did you assist?
A main part of what helped a lot of African girls participate was I went around and gathered as many head wraps as I could that day, and I just stuffed them all in my book bag. Like I took some books out and just stuffed my whole book bag with head wraps, and then I even brought. In the middle of the day when I was close to running out, I brought another. Like I had Akile bring me another bag full of head wraps, and half of my day was spent in the bathroom wrapping girls' heads, and no matter where I was, even during lunch, a lot of girls would come to me or come to the bathroom because they knew that's where I was, and asked can they get their head wrapped. And then while I was wrapping their heads, I was also giving them like a political education on we're not just doing this for a fashion statement, we're not just doing this to prove a point or anything like that, we're doing this with goals and objectives at the end of this, and this is what you should do if you're approached. So and I handed out my dashikis. Like I have 3, and I gave my other 2 to my brothers to wear to school that day so they could stand in solidarity. And I have another brother in middle school who wanted to participate too, even though he's not in high school or it didn't happen at his school, but he wanted to show support, so that's what I did.
But it kind of did happen at his school, like I was saying earlier, touch one, touch all, and this repressive state system is doing this all over the globe, or especially in the U.S. to African students and just African people in general. And you say you was giving political educations, letting the young lady or young women know that this is not, we're not doing this for a game. We're not just doing this for a joke. What are the goals and objectives?
The main goals and objectives of doing this we had 4 goals. Black community control of the police, because Jelani might have been more hesitant about taking off her head wrap if the administrator wasn't assisted by an occupying military force on our campus. And that's a constant struggle we face, are occupying military forces on our campus. It's not just one police officer. Just in the front office that day, there were 3 police officers with guns, tasers, and everything, the full 9, on our campuses. And the second demand was Black community control of schools, because if we had some kind of power on our schools, things like this wouldn't happen to African girls or African people. Then after that we are planning to build an annual chapter on campus in the form of a school club to have our presence on campus. And then the 4th demand was, that was it. It was Black community control of schools, Black community control of the police, and then to build an annual chapter on Gibbs campus.
Those are some very solid demands. That's more than just, some of this stuff, Go ahead.
Sorry, I remembered. And the 4th demand was the immediate removal of this policy that addresses the head wraps. So, yeah.
Leo, can you speak to how this policy is an attack on African culture, the school's dress code policy?
Yeah. Well, this isn't the only policy that attacks African culture, and but this is a main one that is affected us. At that time, it just really to say that we can't wear head wraps when head wraps is such a significant part of African culture. Like we've been wearing head wraps since the continent, and we've been wearing head wraps even when we were stolen from the continent and brought here to America. Like that's something we still held on to. And considering the fact that being here and going through colonialism and being colonized, we were stripped of our culture, even down to our names. Mm-hmm. We were stripped of everything cultural, like everything that involved our culture, our language, our names, how we operate, how we do things was stripped from us in order to make us, assimilate to whiteness. And one of the things that we still held on to was those head wraps. Even when we were, being abused and, working as slaves, like we still had our head wraps and we still, wrapped our head through all of that. So to say that we can't wear head wraps even on school campuses, where we, even to say we can't wear head wraps on school campuses is just a repeat of that assault on African culture and stripping the culture from African women, just like how they did when they first brought us here in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Earlier you mentioned the presence of police on the campus under the disguise of resource officers. Can you just tell us a little bit about what Black community control of the police means and how it applies to the high school?
Yeah, so Black community control police basically looks like the Black community having the right to hire, fire, and discipline any police that come into our communities, and the police that especially on our school campuses. We feel like that the police shouldn't even be on the school campuses where children are supposed to be, trying to learn. But you have this like I said, occupying military force still trying to enforce its, power on campus by being completely armed and, strapped basically on our campus. So, but Black community control police of the police looks like us being able to hire, fire, and discipline any police that come into our communities.
Uhuru.
Uhuru. And you speak of like the resource officers, the teacher. All right. So what was the race or nationality of the teacher that, or whoever it is, the staff member, the faculty member that asked Jelani to take off her head wrap?
Both the resource officer and the school administrator were both African women. Okay.
Also, what's the nationality of the principal?
He's an African man.
And is this a predominantly African school?
Yes. The school has to be at least 85% African. And it's been that way. It was more African all the way up until recently when a program was implemented into our school. It's a performing arts program and attempts to integrate our schools, thinking that would make our schools better if we had white kids attending it. So it's still predominantly African. The school is predominantly African.
So I would just bring that up because in so many instances, we as African people come up against African people blocking us from our own Africanness. And I just, what we have summed up as African internationalists, as people, members of the Uhuru movement, African People's Socialist Party, we've summed up that as being neo-colonialism. Can you explain, that functioning within your school, and how does it stop Africans from really, seeing the injustices, the wrongs, and the mistreatment of their conditions, they're in, I should say.
Mm-hmm. Basically, neo-colonialism is white power and blackface. And so, what we as African people have to realize that, you can't really be fooled when you see neo-colonialism like in action, because that's its intended purpose, to fool you into, aligning with this neo-colonialist because they look like you. Mm-hmm. But really, like I said, it's white power and blackface. So they're just carrying out the will of, the oppressor, but just in a face that you're more, related to, so you may comply with this. So
yeah. Could you give us any glaring examples of neo-colonialism that people might can identify with just right now?
Yeah, President Barack Hussein Obama. He is a big neo-colonialist. You know, and a lot of African people, you know, aligned with him and united with him, like celebrating because we had an African that they thought was going to be representing them. But, you know, we saw very clearly that once he came into office that he does the same thing as every other white president did, and if not, has done worse for the African community and, you know, all colonized people around the world. He is, in fact, a neo-colonialist, and he is nothing but white power and blackface. And even in the situation of, you know, our situation with the head wraps, the officer with a gun strapped to her waist was an African woman. So, you know, it's the same. It's the same.
Yeah, and it's crazy because we had a conversation with one of the high-level officials, administrators in Gibbs, and it's funny because you know, they give us a report that, you know, the police, you know, the resource officer came back to them and was like, man, I want to wear my hair wrap too. You know, I feel them, and I if I could wear my hair wrap, I would. So, and that's just speaking to how imperialism, how white power has the neo-colonialists, you know, by the short and curlies for lack of a better term, because, you know, if she really wants to wear a hair wrap, she got a gun, you know what I'm saying? She got all this stuff, and if she really want to wear her hair wrap to work, she could do that. But she can't because white power won't let her. White power won't let her be African. White power makes her work against her own interests for a check that, you know, that sustains her and only herself. So it's funny that, you know, you can understand that and you can sum it up. And this big old grown African woman is having, you know, stumbling blocks and can't really understand.
Leo, I had a question. What does Black community control of the school mean?
Black community control of the schools just means that, you know, we as the African community have power on our campus and, you know, actual real influence on what happens on that campus. And if we had, you know, Black community control of the schools, you know, we would be able to have some kind of power and, you know, say so of what goes on in that campus. And if Black community control of the schools was actually present on that campus, we wouldn't have things like, you know, resource officers on there. We would have actual representation for African people on that campus, like ANWO, for example, to be on that campus. We would have that kind of power.
You have something else?
Well, basically, so how are the students responding to these demands as far as the Black community control of the schools and Black community control of the police? Because also I believe I heard you say that this demonstration gave a lot of the students power they didn't even know that they had. So how are the students now responding to the demands that the students, the African students, should be responsible and in charge of what happens at that school and how they're educated? How are they responding to these demands?
All the African students on my campus were responding great. Like they were, you know, really uniting with the demands and uniting with the struggle. And a lot of African girls that, you know, I spoke to that, you know, wanted to come thank me for doing, or, you know, for, I guess, starting this demonstration on campus, were, you know, asking, what can I join? Like, I want to be a part of something. I want to be a part of an organization. And, you know, that's how the masses of African people already are. They want to be organized. They want to be put into, you know, political life. And, you know, it's just up to us to do that. And so they're really excited about ANWO starting on campus and, you know, can't wait to join. So hopefully ANWO will have an ANWO chapter on Gibbs campus very, very soon so we can get organized.
Go ahead. How are their students responding to the possibility of being disciplined for quote unquote breaking the school's policies by participating in these Hair Wrap Wednesdays?
Being disciplined to, you know,
because it's against policy to wear a hair wrap, right? And there's usually some type of consequence if you. So how are the students responding to this potential consequence for quote unquote breaking the rules that are in place?
At first, a lot of there are, it's kind of half and half. A lot of students were, afraid to suffer some kind of consequence for, going against the status quo. And a lot of students were, even afraid to come out to that press conference that day, because even that was, risky for them. And when we were bringing students out there to come to the press conference, a lot of them stayed back and just watched from the school campus, because a lot of those resource officers came out and, began intimidating them. And that's why a lot of, African students are afraid of, breaking the laws, because we know how the police function in our communities, and we know how they function against African people. So that can be really scary for a lot of African students. But I think when a lot of African students saw the numbers that we have, and, the power that we have on campus, when, all of us are united and standing and demanding the same thing, that a lot of students got inspired to break those rules and, said, I don't care about, the consequence that I might suffer for doing this. So I think that we're getting bold.
A question came to me, and it made me think about the pulled together meeting that was held after the press conference, where a high level official wanted to refer to you as Cleo, and you had to keep reminding him that your name was Liu. How did you get the name Liu, and why did you feel it was necessary for you to get this new name?
I guess I'll speak on why I felt like that I needed a new name in the first place. I'll talk about when I got renamed at the Cadre Intensive School, Development School here at the Uhuru House, and it was through a naming ceremony, and I got named by the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, and then I also Secretary General Lawezi from the Congo.
Yes,
from the Congo participated in helping find my name. So I thought it was very important to get an African name, because that just ties into the thing with the head wraps as well, because like I spoke to earlier, how when African people were stolen from Africa and brought here, we were stripped down to the culture, even down to our names. So now we speak a language that's foreign to us. We have names that definitely are foreign to us. Like, we didn't get on the boat and come here named Angela, Sarah, Tammy, Cleopatra. Like, those names, aren't for us. And so my name before it was Liu was, Cleopatra. And people, some people were like, oh, why do you want to change your name? That's African already. But Cleopatra worked for white power, y'all. Cleopatra, was married to, Julius Caesar. And, she just participated in slaughtering a lot of people. And, she did not work in the interest of African people. And so that's why I thought it was so important to get a new name and, be named by my comrades. So, yeah.
I really think that this is amazing. And like how you mentioned earlier, speaks to the fact of how everything was taken away from us, and how this assault still continues to take place today. That's why a campaign like the Head Rap Wednesdays is so important, to begin to give back power in our own lives, with encouraging young women and women all over the country that you should embrace who you are, and also encouraging the male students to be in solidarity with that by participating and wearing their dashikis. I just think that it's a very important and powerful thing that you have going on at Gibbs High School. I just want to salute you.
I just want to also salute you, Liu, and also say that you are a shining example of what our African students are capable of doing. Do you feel any more special than anybody? I mean, I'm just asking. Do you feel like any more special than anyone?
No.
That's what. And I know I ask the questions only because I want people who are listening and watching to understand that we are no better as revolutionaries than nobody else. Mm-hmm. We just have a love for freedom of all people, of our people and specifically, but we have a love for freedom and we want our people to be free and have a future without being scared and being killed or abused, oppressed, miseducated, whatever it may be that colonialism is doing to us. We want that. We want to be break free of that and be able to be self-determining people. And that's all that is. So I want to encourage everyone who is out there watching, listening to uhururadio.com to you know, if you're an African woman in this nation, join the African National Women's Organization, and that's anwo.org. anwo.org. If you know, we have NPDM. Go to npdm.org. Join NPDM. If you want to be, you know, in the African People's Socialist Party, go to joinapsp.org. It's so many ways that you can get involved in this revolution and changing the world for the best. And this is our youngest member, and I'm just really thrilled to have you on this show, and the stance that you should be exemplified by everyone out there, old, young. anwoahuru.org. I'm sorry, anwoahuru.org is the actual web address to join ANWO. And if you want to give us a call or talk to Liu live, you can dial 727-565-1599. Again, that number is 727-565-1599.
And with that break, we're gonna get ready to segue right into a song, "Black August" by Killer Priest. You said you couldn't find that while you were online. Find that piece where she's speaking.
Well, I can't listen to it.
Could you put out like scene when it transfers to she's speaking now?
And I was just getting into liking that song.
Section of the same video.
You want to speak? You want to come over here and say some stuff?
Oh yeah, come on, you're here.
Let's
So this would be another section of the same FaceTime video.
Facebook
video.
Yeah, it's a portion where Liu talks.
We just
Give you
The agenda, again, read the rest of this title.
and give a sum of kind of what happened.
Facebook out.
You done?
Huh?
You done?
No.
You might have to. I'm gonna see it. You like the page and everything? You like the page?
Tell me where to.
You might need the app.
Just this one incident being told to take out my red wrap.
Can you describe some of your experience being an African woman in high school?
I want to get the part where Lee was reading.
That's what I said. Go back.
Yeah, you gotta go back. Go back.
Able to wear
Go back.
embrace our culture.
Go back.
I don't know her name, but she was a
Go back.
The next day, I came to school wearing my African head wrap to show
Just a
support and
tad bit,
solidarity
tad
with her.
bit. No.
students to ensure that their voices are not smothered by policy or administration. And we will be here again tomorrow at 6 p.m. for the back school night. Bringing this to the agenda again. Redirecting this entire culture to criminalize us, Black youth, and we're telling all to wear your wraps for hoodoo.
All right, right there. How much time we got left?
Got 2 minutes.
Man, I wish I can cover up that apple, man. I'm tired of seeing that crap.
No, I didn't say that.
That's better.
Yeah.
I got you on one day.
What the?
So you have 42 minutes.
One day.
Well, no, it's still going on. She just let me out. I did my report first, so I could try to do something.
You wanna we're gonna have to get you
be like exorcism. A poet's
We're gonna let you feel
wisdom.
much.
Give a vision, dialect, just listen to productions. Let it touch
You
the
good right there?
system.
Let's get you a,
Watch me, I'm winning. Those in prison from the building. Locked up like six singing, just like King Sing. Right into the student again, sight to the blind, we shoot them. Yeah, it's all day, man. I can't believe what I'm hearing. You know what I'm saying, what I'm seeing.
Not flat,
I go
not
all day
saying
long,
impossible,
but
but
like,
the feet
yo,
are supposed to
I
be.
just keep going. Yeah, check it out, yo. My heart is jaded, I'm stargated. All
And
days,
because you're
yeah.
there's no shock to back your feet to let you know that you're running right.
How much time?
You're not running right just that. And when you have a flat shoe, running up that shoe, it lets you know that
So we're gonna get to this key later. We're gonna have to share mics.
when you have a flat shoe, you're running.
It makes you feel like closer when you talk.
If you make a mistake, like when you're running, every run, you may run a flat shoe, no. Versus when you have a cushion, you can't know. So you're hurting yourself and then you realize it feels. That's what I know.
Yeah, I like this song.
Oh, it's not Black August anymore. Black September.
Yeah, but that track's so cold. Dang, he snapped.
Nice to bring them, so.
Uhuru, welcome to Africa Live on uhururadio.com. My name is Dasun True.
I'm Timber Shabanda.
And in the studio, we still have our very special guest, Liu, and also another special guest who has just joined us. Can you introduce yourself, special guest?
Uhuru. I'm special guest Akile Anai.
Uhuru.
Great to have you in the studio, special guest. Well, we've been talking all morning about the case of the Black Girls Rap Wednesday. Can you briefly just sum up your experience of that press conference and tell us a little bit more about what that means, Black Girls Rap Wednesday?
Uhuru. So the experience of the press conference, it was really powerful to see the leadership of African women in this organization and to see Comrade Liu, who's only 17 years old. And she goes in with the threat of all these police officers around her, and she's organizing on her feet the entire time, trying to figure out, you know, how do I get this mass of people out of this building unharmed? And that's like a perfect example of what cadre is, and just being able to, like, all right, I know I've got to get this done, and no real we weren't able to tell her that. We didn't even know the format of the school, and she was able to accomplish that. And the work that she did afterwards, as far as organizing everyone, going against the administrators trying to attack her, wrapping a bunch of girls' heads that day. It was just some serious, hard thinking, organizing cadre from this comrade. So it was very powerful to see.
That's interesting that you should say the word cadre. That's exactly what that was. That was, thinking on your feet, leading the people and finding a way towards getting the job done, whatever it takes to get the job done, not stopping or anything like that, or folding, no surrender, no compromise. So, man, that's real.
Uhuru, so you had an important role in the press conference, giving a statement. Have you been back to the school since then? And if so, what has that been like?
So yes, the following day I had to return to that school because Comrade Liu, she contacted me letting me know that the principal there was pulling people into his office to demand that they get parental consent to wear their head wraps, because I guess we need parental consent to get dressed in the morning or whatever. So I had a one-on-one conversation, full head wrap gear, everything. I go into his office to, tell him to stop intimidating and interrogating our girls, or there will be serious consequences. And that put him in a real tough position, trying to tell him that we don't need permission to be Black. We don't need permission to be ourselves. And that he kept trying to bring up this, this type of compromising situation where, well, if you just ask permission, then we won't need to harass these girls and things like that. And I'm saying, no, that's not happening. We're not getting permission. We're not compromising on this. And trying to meet in the middle as far as this policy, and just a strict saying, we're not we're not accommodating with this policy. We're trying to overturn it. We want to change it completely, destroy it. And that message she wasn't really too fond of. But when I left that meeting, well, we got an interesting phone call saying that he would not be pulling our girls into his office anymore to tell them that they need parental consent, and that he would leave our girls alone. So that was a serious victory.
Hooroo! All we do is win, win, win. My colonial days is but yeah, that is a serious win, very serious win, and that song kind of fit because that's all we really do is win. I think we like, the year and O right now. You know what I'm saying? we ain't lost yet as the Hoover movement, and that's because the imperialism is in crisis, and when imperialism is in crisis, the oppressed people are strong and at its strongest, and we have to unite the oppressed people. And it's just just a beautiful thing to see, these young people going on this campus, an arm of the state in a sense. The school is also an arm of the state, and you're going in there and you're resisting African resistance, young African resistance, young African working class resistance. Man, y'all gonna make me cry.
So, Liu, what are some things moving forward that we can expect from this campaign?
You can expect plenty more Black Girls Rap Wednesdays. That was not the only one. Next Wednesday, we'll be doing it all over again, and every single Wednesday until this policy gets changed. And you'll be seeing ANWO much more, especially in the youth. You'll be seeing a lot more youth in ANWO, a lot more ANWO chapters, not only just on Gibbs campuses. We're not just stopping at Gibbs campuses. We're going to put an ANWO chapter. We're going to expand it beyond Gibbs, so you're going to see much more of that. And I'm excited to be a part of that.
Also, a question for Akile. Can you speak a little bit about how this Black Girls Rap Wednesday campaign is expanding outside of St. Petersburg?
Yes. So, like Leo mentioned, this campaign is being led by the African National Women's Organization. So, we're starting at Gibbs campus because this is where the attack was here. And we want to spread it within Pinellas County, all the schools in Pinellas County. Pinellas County has been targeting African students, has this terrible reputation with African students. And so we want to put it on every campus here and broaden that, because ANWO needs to be wherever African people, or especially wherever African women are. ANWO needs to be there. ANWO needs to be there. And so we do plan to, push this campaign bigger. And we know we can accomplish that because this is something that we see around this entire country and around the world. In South Africa, the continent of Africa, Pretoria, you have these African girls who are fighting a policy that says they have to straighten their natural hair at an all-white school in South Africa. That doesn't make any sense. And so that's why this campaign can grow as big as it can, because Africans everywhere united can't be defeated. When we put our struggle in context with all the Africans around the world, that we are all under the same oppression. We all have the same oppressor. That's how we can build this campaign. That's how we can win. So, really excited to see where this takes off.
One settler.
One bullet.
Just wanted to do that really quick.
Yes.
That's how we relieve stress around here. But I really unite with what you're saying and putting out there, Akile, as far as the worldwide scope of our oppression. It's just like what's going on here is the same thing that's going on in South Africa. And the crazy part is that the Africans in South Africa are indigenous to that land, and you have these white people coming there telling them that you have to straighten up. That is absurd. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the more and more I think about that, that's crazy. And Akile, how old are you?
Oh, I'm 19.
You're 19, and we know Leo is 17. We have to get this conversation. We have to get every 19 and 17-year-old to speak and talk about the issues that you speak and talking about as 17 and 19-year-olds. That is how we're going to overcome this oppression. That's what's going to change the ruling class into the African working class being the rulers of the world, rather than we deserve to be. So because we have no interest in oppressing anyone. So but this is the types of things that you are talking about right now. I've been educated. You've educated me a ton, and I'm quite sure a lot of people out there are feeling the same way. I just want to speak to want you to speak to both of you. This is for both of you. Speak to some of the things that's been going on in Gibbs High School. You went to Gibbs too, right? Speak to some of the things that's been going on in Gibbs High School, and before that you recognize and could sum up now being an African internationalist, because I know you've been an African internationalist kind of by default, but you really just started getting into it maybe this year, this year, right? And you also, and while you were in school, you saw things and you didn't know how to quite sum it up. Can you speak to some of those things? Let's go with Akile first.
Right. So I did attend Gibbs, and first, wanted to unite, especially when Timba said earlier about the school being a form of the state, being an arm of the state, and because we know the schools are used to uphold the current social system, the status quo, and that entire social system has been written in our blood. So of course, nothing that they teach can be of any benefit or anything like that. And our schools function as prisons in our community. Different school, and it started as an African school. It started out as an African school in an African community, and they implemented this performance theater program that would bring white people to the school, that would integrate the schools, because apparently that's why African students were failing. It's because we weren't with white people. And when they put this program they called PCCA on the campus, you just saw this huge rift in everything. And all the students there who can't necessarily sum it up in an African internationalist way still can see that one PCCA gets more funding than any of the programs at the school. They have their own separate building, which is updated with the most top-notch equipment. It's
state of the art.
State of the art, there we go, equipment. And, textbooks, everything. Everything that is good is pushed into that area. And I just want to say that I never saw a resource officer on the PCCA side of campus, ever. In my years of being there, I had never seen a police walk down the hallways the way they walk through the hallways on what they call the traditional side of the campus. And the traditional side is majority populated by African students. And even the Beta program, which is another, magnet program, and a lot of Africans are in that program as well, but it's the same thing. And even that magnet program is on a side of where there's no funding, no anything going on around there. And the PCCA program is really not inclusive to Africans on that campus. You have this with a majority white curriculum. You're doing plays, singing opera. When I auditioned, I went for vocal music first, and I was told my voice was too soulful. It was too soulful for their curriculum. They wanted, my version of Amazing Grace did not qualify. So, this is what was put on our campus that African people don't even have access to. And when you're on this side of campus, the traditional side, there are things that you don't even hear about that the school has to offer. There are these clubs, there are these scholarships, there are all this kind of stuff. They were the last ones to hear about it, if we do hear about it. So it's two different schools, just like there's two different Americas. But yeah, that's my experience.
Leo?
Well, she just summed it up pretty well. I was going to speak on the PCCA program and just, what it is and what it looks like. But, Akile summed it up really well. And she's right. It is two different schools. And just even I've been going there since I was since the end of my 10th grade year. And just even then I see it, and, other students see it as well. It's not something that's, hidden. It's clearly funded more. It's clearly, just made to benefit, you know, white students, and the few African students that are in there and in the program don't get all the benefits from it that, you know, that their white counterparts would. And yeah, it's just ridiculous how. What?
I just want to know, didn't you have an incident with your classes this year?
Last year.
That was last year, and the teacher wouldn't, you know, let you participate in the program. Tell us about that.
So basically, also with the program and all the kids in the program, you can't even be in classes with these kids. And, you know, it's supposed to be integrating, but most of the classes they have, you can't even participate if you're not, you know, if you don't qualify, if you're not a part of this PCCA program. In my 11th grade year, I was basically done with all the classes that I needed to do that year by the time second semester rolled around, because just my whole time in high school, I've been, you know, ahead of my classes. And so they asked, you know, what other classes do I want to do now, since, you know, I didn't have really any more academic classes to do. And I said I wanted to do art, or I wanted to, you know, dance, like do dance classes, because, you know, I heard that there's a way that, you know, traditional kids could go into these classes. And so when I went into my second art class there that year, you know, I just kept facing problems from the teacher there. And, you know, she kept, you know, asking, you know, why are you here? Let me see your schedule, you know. Keep in mind, there was like few African students in that class. I think there was one or two others in that class, but for the most part, you know, it was an all white, you know, class where the kids were doing, it wasn't like advanced art. Like we were twisting coils in a circle and yeah, and making like Egyptian jewelry. So yeah, she just basically, I didn't know at the time, but what she was doing, she kept going to the office and, you know, basically trying to get me pulled out of the class. And, you know, that I couldn't be in the class with these advanced art students who were one younger than me, and it was their first year of art in the first place. But eventually she got her wish. She got me removed out of the class. And
what was their reasoning? I remember
her reasoning was that, you know, I wasn't in the program, and so therefore I couldn't be in a class with kids in the program, and that it would be too advanced and move too fast for me. Like, and she never taught a class with me before. She never knew if I had any artistic background or anything like that. She just said it'd be too advanced for me to participate in.
And if I'm not mistaken, I remember something saying that she was protecting the safety.
Yeah, also for the safety of the magnet program students. That was their reasoning of keeping the traditional kids out, was for the safety of the magnet students. And that was just, you know, outrageous to me.
I mean, you don't look like you can hurt a fly. But that's, but,
I was gonna say, no, have you seen me in the gym?
I'm just saying something.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. But that's crazy that, you know, that a teacher could form her lips and force those words to come out in a school system that you participate in, a school environment that you participate in, and that, you know, and that just shows the colonial relationship that we have with, you know, the colonizer, with the oppressor, and, you know, and the schools being also an arm of the state. So I think we're going to have to take a break. Let's before we do that, we're going to take a break. But before we do that, I want everybody to tell everybody how can they get in contact with ANWO and PETM or whatever organizations you represent, and how could they get involved with the Head Wrap Wednesday, and also before that, is this Head Wrap issue the only thing that you're going to be doing, targeting the school as far as what's been going on?
Well, just to revert back to our demands as far as this Head Wrap campaign is concerned, we all have the demands of Black community control of the police and Black community control of schools, because we understand this encompasses a much broader aspect of, one, the reason why Jelani took off her head wrap was because she was in the presence of a police officer. And we understand how the police function on our campus. That we need Black community control of the police because you have these full militarized, armed to the T with guns, tasers, mace, everything that you could possibly imagine, resource officers, just 3 alone in the front office on this campus with majority African students. And anybody that's going to be on our schools, in our communities, we need control over them with guns. We need the right to hire, fire, and discipline the people who come in our communities, enforcing any law with weapons or anything like that. So, and also Black community control of schools, because this whole dress code policy in the first place is completely subjective, and the African community didn't have any say-so in what the dress code policy got to look like. None of our parents were in that meeting. And so these are laws put forth for us to abide by that we didn't have any type of, say-so in how these are going to operate. And we're, for any type of petty things like that criminalizes our culture or anything like that, that's something that we weren't included in. We need Black community control of schools to be able to control the curriculum of, because we understand, like we said about the schools being an arm of the state and the schools being here to protect the interests of the ruling class. And so, of course, a curriculum like that is not going to exist in these schools. And so we need Black community control of schools to be able to put forth our own curriculum, be able to determine our own dress code policy, be able to determine anything like that our kids have to follow. We need control over that. That's some of the.
All I could say is they should, the school board has opened up a can of worms. They should just let that hair wrap ride, let Jelani just wear that, because now everything is about every contradiction will be exposed, and that's the beauty of young revolutionaries. Go ahead.
And I just want to note that if you want to check out ANWO and everything like that, go to anwoahuru.org, ANWO
Uhuru. Just like to thank my very special studio guests, Akile and Liu, for joining us on the Africa Live this hour. To talk about this very important campaign that's being waged here in St. Petersburg, but also being taken all over the world. So what we're going to do right now is get ready to go to a quick song break, and that's Maganese by Akala.
Thank you. That's very, very, very good. Very, very good.
I got like a half.
That was very good. Yeah, that was. Good job, y'all. Great.
All right.
You got enough charge on your phone?
Me organizing an international convention. Sorry. All right. Okay, now we got another one. We got to go with those questions. What time is that? 1 o'clock. Well, you can help me fill program.
You sent me the question all late.
And those and what else? What you trying to drag me into now? A lot.
It's a delay. Chevy, you ready? Sure. We're talking about Colin Kaepernick and his resistance. Chevy, you're gonna be in a minute.
So you leave the portion of this part. I ain't got no electronic documents here. I'll just bring us back and then,
Yeah, basically I'm opening it up with stating that this is a kind of continuation of what we spoke about last week, and we got Chevy here to decode.
You could email me those points. I can pull it up from the website on my phone.
Oh, you're talking about the VIP
Yeah, but
points?
you're gonna go over those again too.
Yeah, we'll go over that.
You can send that to me.
Kevin, 30 minutes, is that good?
That's cool. However long. I mean, I just heard you were going to talk about it, and I just wanted to be a part of it.
that's-
So
yeah.
how are you planning?
I mean, we planning for you to talk about it now, because you got that's how we plan it. But yeah, we got you. Appreciate you, Chairman. All right.
How many millions dead at the bottom of the ocean, thrown overboard like property stolen and jumped overboard? Mother to be sold on a mother with a baby in arms. Hold on, what awaited was not just enslavement, but a genocidal impulse craving. They committed unspeakable abuses to make a nigga from an African human. Took a woman ready to give birth, tied her limbs to 4 posts on firm. In the main square, made every slave watch, covered her in room. Y'all feel like adults if anyone watching, even a relative. Made the sound kill them for the hell of it. This was every day, not the exception. The science of gynecology was perfected on black women.
You were with me when I saw that young brother yesterday, but not that young now. But, I couldn't believe it. He recognized me from back then, and I don't look anything like that back then. I mean, he's the first person that's ever said. Yeah, that's incredible. The young brother, you remember me? He was a youngster. He's not young now. He's, I forgot how old he was.
He was 50 something.
But he was sort of a follower of Jomo back in the day. And he saw me walking by and said, "You look like Jomo." A lot of people call me Jomo. And he was saying that because he was just, he didn't know who I was. And I was just surprised because he said that I looked, wow. And he just got out of prison. I forgot, he did 15 years in prison, he said. And
why Africa? Imperialism for the new age with a brown face on it. That's right. Imperialism for the new age with a brown face on it.
Who is that?
Rapper? Yeah, Colin.
What's it called?
The song? Mahogany.
What?
Mahogany, because he said it means African Holocaust.
Some try their best to justify this torture, asking you who the slaves were brought from. If you don't know, tell them to get the hell out. Every genocide ever has had sellouts. And the largest wars of humans were fought between people of Western Europe. Some of your rationale is cool to kill Frenchmen. They kill Germans that look like them. Observe right, but when your skin's white, different set of rules you can't abide by. Dark sufferings not humanized, no surprise, we still see ourselves with their eyes. Darkies became legally human during the course of our parents' life, and the freedoms we have only occur because the ancestors spilled the blood to the earth. Change that much? You so sure? The world's darker people still the most poor. So it's our task to put an end to this. Even those like me with a head of that, this 7 nights in it back, 9 inches, and it's only been carried out 6 when the moon starts coming. Can it begin to fix?
My hair. She was supposed to be like a hairdresser. She didn't know what to do with my hair, so she was like wrapping and twisting and pulling my hair out. I was like, what are you doing? She's like, oh, these are just dead ends. They have to come. Like, no, that's how my hair grows. Like, you know, it shoots out the longest piece. That way the others can wrap around and attach them. She's like, oh, well, you don't need it. It'll keep growing. I was like, I have it. It's okay. And I just went and I just did my band twist and get curly, and that's what I have to work with the show. She's like, how did you do that? I'm like, I thought you were supposed to be like this hairdresser. I'm like, you don't know anything about your own hair.
Oh, she was an African woman?
Yeah, she was African, but then she said that her daughter is natural, so she like picks on her like when she uses combs. That's why I don't use combs. She asked me what products I brought. I said I have grease and water. And she's like, you don't have gel or anything? I was like, no, I don't use gel on my hair. Mexico.
Welcome back to Africa Live and WhoRadio.com. My name is Dave Suntru.
And I'm Timba Shabanda. We have with us our special guest, Chairman Omali Ishatella, Chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, and also the African Socialist International. We're talking about, last week we talked about Colin Kaepernick and his wonderful stance, unpatriotic stance against white power and that terrible flag that they like to salute, and the Star Spangled Banner, all that craziness. And when we spoke about it last week, you know, it was more of a glancing type of discussion.
Yes.
But you know, here to deepen that discussion is the deepener himself, Chairman Omali Ishatella. And you know, I just wanted to just welcome you, Chairman. to the show, and also wanted to just get your initial reaction to what you heard about Colin Kaepernick, and what do you think about his stance, this righteous stance he took?
First of all, I just wanted to say that I'm happy to participate in the discussion, and I hope I can contribute something to the discussion. That I was really pleased to see what this young brother did, and the stance that he's taken in terms of standing for the national anthem. And I was pleased because one of the things that it shows is that this movement that's trying to emerge right now, or in fact is emerging right now, and that's struggling for some kind of definition and character, is invading the popular culture. Of course, we saw some aspects of this with the kind of hysteria that developed behind Beyonce's presentation, I think, when she wore a caricature, if you will, of Black Panther outfit, and seemed to suggest some relationship to the Black Panther Party, the original Black Panther Party. And we've seen it in other areas of the popular culture. And I think that that's an indication of the growth of sentiment among the masses of the people. And what we will find is, especially as with Beyonce and other entertainers, that if they actually are going to maintain some kind of social relevance, they have to reflect the values and attitudes that's emerging from among the people. So I think that it was really important. To see this young brother take the stance based on that. It's in part showing how there is a movement underfoot that is growing among broader masses of people, and that this is why the brother took the stance. And what helps us to understand this is not something that he did before August 9th, 2014, when the young African rose up in Ferguson, and nor did Beyonce achieve her revolutionary consciousness, or whatever you want to call it, before then. That this is a consciousness that's being driven by the resistance of the people in the streets, who again rose up by working class young African people. And it is that which has not just the resistance in the abstract, but the fact that in the streets, these young Africans fought against this armed domestic military force that's called the police. And that was something that thrilled and inspired Africans throughout this country. And it has resulted in the arrival of other sectors of the population, some of whom are trying to hijack this movement to direct it in a way that's favorable to the existing system, to the system. So it was really good to see him doing this, but I think it's important to remember that his stance is a reflection of a change that's happening in consciousness among broad masses of African people, especially young African working class people. I think this whole question of two things: the pledge, the national anthem, and the basis that was given by Kaepernick. Is that how he pronounces his name?
Kaepernick. Yep.
Kaepernick. The basis that was given for not standing, being the police terror, police murder in the community, I think is really interesting, because the fact is that the national anthem, as it's characterized, is something that is designed to promote the patriotism among masses of people to promote patriotism in a society. And patriotism, of course, is simply loyalty to the ruling colonial state and the ruling class itself. That's all patriotism is. When we talk about a white nationalist, we're talking about a patriot. A U.S. patriot is a white nationalist, and that patriot is a white nationalist, even if it's an African, because we have white nationalists. The majority of white people are white nationalists, and there are a number of African people who are black white nationalists, and then there are Mexican white nationalists. But to the extent that we are patriotic toward the oppressor colonial state, to the extent that we are loyal, that's what patriotism is. And having state power gives an oppressor an opportunity to institutionalize certain acts that promote nationalism and patriotism, which is almost the same thing. And so the problem that we have is that for an African to be a U.S. patriot is someone who has to be against ourselves. To be patriotic to U.S. colonialism is to be in unity with our subjugation and our colonial status. That's a real trick bag that we've been in for a long time. It's a trick bag. And when you have state power, you have a national anthem, you have your red, white, and blue flag, you have all these other things, even the practice of Christmas and Thanksgiving and all these basic holidays, the holiday that's supposed to be tomorrow. What's it called? Labor Day. Under colonialism, these are things that are designed to foment patriotism. And why is it that somebody would be concerned about singing the national anthem at a football game? I mean, why is it that, but of course, all of these sports events, and particularly football, they are used to promote patriotism. So even when people go out, white people go out to what's supposed to be a sporting event, patriotism, war fever, military troops, you'll find more and more at halftimes and football games and things like this. And of course, as you know, football is nothing but an exercise in warfare. The ongoing struggle for territory, backwards and forth. You have aerial assault. You have grunts or the infantry running assaults. It's nothing but war. And patriotism is promoted very seriously at these kinds of events. But I think what is important for us to really recognize when we think about this young comrade, Kaepernick, because he tried to take a stance based on his understanding. And like most people coming into political life at this moment, it's a limited kind of understanding, but it's important nevertheless, partially because of what we said in terms of how it's a reflection of the fact that the struggle of the people now is reaching this cultural, this arena of, where you have like cultural workers and things like that, the public arena in that fashion, but also because it challenges the whole question of patriotism. This is one of the reasons that a lot of people would be upset, because in order to be a U.S. patriot, an African has to be against his own freedom or her own freedom, whether an African is conscious of that or not. But what helps to clarify that for us is the fact that the whole white nation, which is the center of patriotism, achieved this identity through the oppression and exploitation of African people. I mean, you couldn't be an American patriot without having stolen indigenous people's land. So when you're celebrating patriotism, you're celebrating the theft of a land of a whole people who are, even as we have this discussion, locked up in concentration camps. And you couldn't be the kind of American patriot you are now without the benefit that has come through captive African enslavement. So you have the white identity has come at the expense of African freedom, of the freedom of the indigenous peoples called Indians, Mexicans, and what have you. And so the stance that Kaepernick has taken is much greater than what may obviously be demonstrated to a lot of people. And then if you look at the full four, I think it was something like 4 stanzas or 4 verses to the Star Spangled Banner, most people are only aware of the first 2. But if you look at the third verse of the Star Spangled Banner, it's really interesting because you got to remember that this thing was written by Francis Scott Key during subject to the so-called War of 1812, where after the United States tried to steal Canada from the white people who had stolen it from the indigenous people, the British waged this war that burned the capital, and this is where the whole banner is still flying because all of this war that was going on. And what had happened is that the British offered any African who was enslaved by the United States to be free if you came and joined the British. So you had Africans who had joined the British fighting against the United States to be free. And so this is part of the context for this whole, even the Star Spangled Banner being written. And so the third stanza that nobody talks about says that, and where is that band who so vauntingly swore that the havoc of war and the battle's confusion, a home and a country should leave us no more. The blood has washed out their foul footsteps pollution. No refuge should save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave. And the Star Spangled Banner in triumph doth wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave. And the land of the free, which is the land stolen from the indigenous people, and the home of the brave white people who made sure that Africans who were fighting for freedom would not be free, who were enslaved. So this is the Star Spangled Banner that we are talking about. This is the thing that they are celebrating. This is the nationalism, the patriotism. And then they got you chumped into standing up teary-eyed, singing the Star Spangled Banner, which is a celebration of our own enslavement. And that's about every damn thing that we have with the white world. Every celebration, every ceremony that we participate in is a ceremony and celebration that promotes our own enslavement, our own oppression. So I think that's part of what's really important for us to understand. And the fact is that white identity here and around the world is firmly attached, irreversibly attached to slavery, to colonialism, and what have you. This is how the white man became the white man as a consequence of capturing and enslaving African people. And the home of the brave and the land of the free, is that what it's called? Land of the free, the home of the brave. The land of the free, this was 1812. They're talking about the land of the free, 1814 at the latest. 1812, 1814 is when this is going on. And Africans are still enslaved. They're talking about the land of the free that they're celebrating. And of course, again, it's the land of the indigenous peoples who are still in concentration camps at this moment. So the greater question for us is not whether he should not participate in the Star Spangled Banner as long as African people are being killed by the police. The greater question for us is the fact that we don't understand that African people are being killed by the police because it's a part of the whole reality of colonial domination by white people and white power, and that not only should we not do the Star Spangled Banner at sports events under these circumstances when Africans are being killed, but we shouldn't do it at all, period. And at best, we should be looking to achieve the capacity to develop our own national anthem. And then have a national anthem presupposes that we recognize ourselves not as some kind of race as defined by white people, but as a nation of people who have been brought into captivity by white power and white people, and whose captivity contributed to the definition of white people that allows them to be patriotic in the first place. These are the kinds of questions that we are confronted with. And I'm glad that the brother took the stance, because it gives us an opportunity to have this discussion, and hopefully to even help him to understand what it is that he's involved in. He's an athlete. He's a professional football player. He has taken a good stance. He at risk of resources that he would be getting, rewards that he would be getting through keeping his mouth shut, like most of the Negroes who run, jump, hop, and throw for white people and what they call sports. He was a great stance that he took, and he needs to be made aware of what it means more. And we need to support him in a fashion, depending on whether he can maintain the stance, because I see efforts are being made on a daily basis to get him to modify the stance so that he can kind of sort of not stand for the national anthem, but he can recognize it in some other fashion to appease the virulent white nationalism that's afoot, today.
Chairman, I do have a question. So we're uplifting and we're raising up, saluting Colin Kaepernick. So those,
I'm saluting them young Africans in Ferguson who made it necessary for him and possible for him and all the others to take a stance. What I'm saying is there's the immediate struggle that was influenced by young Africans on Canfield Drive on August 9, 2014 is what made it possible, which grew the consciousness, and that we see this being reflected more in the popular culture like football and dancing and singing, Negroes and stuff like that. It's now penetrating that struggle there. I think that's what's really important for us to understand.
Well, the question I was going to ask is, since if we want to hold up Kaepernick and for this specific action, what about, should we shame those African athletes that don't take this stance? Or, I mean,
I think we should analyze it, and I think we should continue to promote and support people who do take a good stance. And I think when we support people who do take a good stance, and we win wider support throughout the African community, we automatically make a statement about those who don't take a good stance. And I think unless you have somebody, for example, I've forgotten the year that George Foreman went to the Olympics. It was in the 60s when we had Thomas Smith and those other brothers who raised up the black glove, the fist, and were condemned mightily for that. Well, that was the same Olympics. After this happened, George Foreman, who won the champion, the heavyweight, won something. He runs around in the ring with carrying an American flag. And I think that when you do that, that demands condemnation. Other ones, they just continue to prove just because you're African doesn't mean you're smart.
That's kind of something that I was going to speak to, because right after the situation with Colin Kaepernick, many people in the NFL world, current players as well as analysts, began to speak out saying how that no matter what, Colin should respect the American flag and be appreciative of the freedoms that he have here in America, and that it's a disrespect to those freedoms by him protesting the American flag. It kind of speaks to how whenever something happens in the African community, they immediately send these black people in there to try to speak for the majority of the population. Because so many black athletes came out and saying how they disagree with Colin Kaepernick, and like they feel that he should find a different way in order to protest and not disrespecting the American flag. So can you speak a little bit about some of these tactics that that the white media puts out there by forcing all these Africans?
They don't force them Negroes. Them Negroes want them white women and they want them big cars, and that's why they do it. Let's be clear on that. Nobody forced them to do anything, and they made choices, and we have to say that that they have to make a choice, just like this young brother made a choice. So I think that's important to recognize. But the issue of sports. It's really interesting because it's always had a political content. You think about the Olympics in 36, that came to shape and define what the Olympics look like today. That was held in Berlin, Germany, and Hitler and the Nazis, they wanted to show the glory of Nazism and what have you. So all these things you see, the Olympic cities and stuff like that, that started with Germany then. And of course, Germany was promoting the perfect human being, which was a blonde, blue-eyed white person. Yeah. And America didn't have any blonde, blue-eyed white people who could contend with Hitler's blonde, blue-eyed white people. So Jesse Owens, the African, became the one that really deflated Hitler's sting by being this incredible athlete. And I think that if you look at some other things that we think we know about sports, for example, they like to tell us that Jackie Robinson was a wonderful guy, and I think Jackie probably was okay. He was, but the fact is that there were a lot better baseball players than Jackie Africans who played in the Negro League. Yeah. Hit harder. This guy named Josh, what was his name? Gibson. Yeah. They say this guy hit a ball, say you never see it anymore. I mean, but they would not draft these guys. Jackie Robinson was somebody they needed because he was pliable, because he would take being spat on and cursed out and dogged out, and they know they were not going to have any trouble with him, so he became the presentable Negro. He's a Republican, was a Republican. And then you look at even Joe Louis, the old Joe Louis. They loved Joe Louis. They broke him. They used him. They fought, he fought and defeated Max Baer, the Nazi, guy, and what have you, the Brown Bomber, but Joe Louis wasn't the best boxer out there. He was playing. I mean, and they brought along Joe Louis. First of all, they wouldn't let an African fight for the heavyweight title until Jack Johnson. They let Jack Johnson fight, and this was in the early part of the 20th century. And Jack Johnson would beat up white people and laugh at them, and he would taunt them, and then he ran around with white women. They hated his guts. They would come to a Jack Johnson fight with the hope they get a chance to lynch him. This is the literal truth. And they couldn't control him, right? And so he just said all kinds of stuff that made him uncontrollable. So after they took the title from Jack Johnson, it was forever before they let anybody else fight for the heavyweight, and that was Joe Louis. And Joe Louis was the right guy. And then they messed up finally by letting Muhammad Ali fight. And then he became something that was untenable too. So this whole political connection, and they raise up these athletes as, for political purposes, like they fan the national fervor, patriotism, and stuff like that. So these guys have a choice to make. They didn't give birth to themselves. Whatever it is that they take onto a basketball court, or whatever it is they take onto a football field or baseball diamond, they got that in the black community. Yeah. They got it from 1,000 different ways, from black genetics, from black, whatever it is that we bring. So it ain't theirs. They don't have a right to say, well, I'm not going. And then you just had Michael Jordan, who come out in support of the police department. Yeah. I finally got to say something. He comes out, these clowns, they are despicable human beings, and I don't give a damn how high they can jump. Yeah. And I don't care how fast they can dribble or run. The fact is that they have an obligation, just like everybody else has an obligation. And these are the people, if you got to condemn somebody, don't be condemning young people who sag. Don't even condemn young people who are trying to hustle and make a living out there in these communities. Condemn these sellout Negroes who have position and an ability to take a stance and won't take a stance because they're for themselves more than anything else. A dope pusher in the African community will often tell you, this is the only way I can make a living. And I don't like that. I don't support that at all. And therefore, if I can't support that from him, I certainly cannot support some Mercedes-Benz driving, Lamborghini, owning Negro for saying, well, I got to do this in order to make a living. That's just despicable. It's deplorable, and it's not something that we can accept.
Can you speak a little bit about this idea of a class question? It's an issue that I had ran into, saying that, well, how can it be an issue of class when they both are millionaires? But can you speak about how
both who are millionaires?
Like the different professional athletes. When Colin Kaepernick came out and took a stance for he's saying that he's doing this because of the police violence, and somebody else who make the same salary saying, well, it's not an issue, and me stating that that's an issue, of different class interests. Can you speak a little bit?
It's class, and that's one aspect of it. And one reason we can say that it's a class question is because it is possible that we have seen over and over again, for even though the African petty bourgeoisie will never, never, never as a class support the African Revolution, there are sectors of the African petty bourgeoisie, individuals who will betray the interests of that class and unite with the interests of the African workers. And when you start looking at who's been gunned down on the streets, although occasionally they will mess up somebody from the petty bourgeoisie, generally speaking, it's the African working class that's being killed in these damn streets and what have you. So you find in the sector, the petty bourgeoisie, they don't feel like this affects them that much. In fact, they're scared of the African working class in many instances themselves. They won't even come to our communities and stuff like that. But when you find a sector of the African petty bourgeoisie that would commit class suicide, and that's a possibility. When we say class suicide, we're talking about this young man could even possibly lose income and other kind of stuff as a consequence of the stance that he's taken. So that's the thing that gives it a flavor of like a class stance, that he is united with the aspirations of the African workers, with the interests of the African working class, as opposed to the interests of the petty bourgeoisie. Those are most of the people who are condemning him, etc. Those people who identify more with the petty bourgeoisie. And of course, the thing that makes most of this extremely interesting, with Kaepernick being a possible exception, the majority of these Negroes straight from the housing projects any damn way. They ain't never owned nothing before in their lives, you know what I mean? And they can jump high, run fast, you know, dribble and stuff like that. And that's the thing that, you know, has elevated them in terms of money and help them to desert the interests of the majority of the African workers. And the reason there's another aspect of it, because even the African petty bourgeoisie can occasionally find himself, herself in the wrong neighborhood, and the police confronted with the police take, because the police just see an African who they know is colonized, and even the petty bourgeoisie is colonized, just finds a different solution to colonialism than the majority of us do.
I just want to go back to the that Star Spangled Banner and the third stanza.
Yeah.
And everybody keep talking about, you know, the Confederate flag. Yeah. That's crazy because, you know, as African internationalists, we understand that there ain't no difference in the flag. Both flags are the same. Both of them are the slave holders' flag. And that just, you know, just goes to prove it is written that, you know, this is U.S. was not made for Africans. It's just made by Africans. And I just that's appalling to me to just and to be able to hide that.
Well, if you can condemn the Confederate flag, it's not the Confederate flag. People are not killing all these people in Iraq and Afghanistan behind the Confederate flag. They are not destabilizing and starving people in Venezuela because of under the Confederate flag. They're not threatening to annihilate Russia and China possibly and Iran behind the Confederate flag. That's the Star Spangled Banner. That is the flag that they are working with. And so the only difference I would have with you when you say that they're the same, I would say the Confederate flag is dead and gone. This is a living symbol, a living situation that we're confronted with, and the Star Spangled Banner is worse. And what happens is that African people get tricked in the situation that somehow the Ku Klux Klan is the enemy, or some particular white guy or group of white people is the enemy, and don't recognize the fact that there's a whole system that came into existence off of our enslavement and benefits from our enslavement and our oppression. So you might even have a nice white guy. You know, you might be married to one, a nice white guy. But that's got nothing to do with the condition that African people experience. And this is problematic too, because you will find somebody who is married to a nice white guy and will defend, will say, well, you just can't say that, you know, because all whites aren't bad. And, you know, something to that effect. And who gives a damn, that's not what we are dealing with. We're dealing with a whole system. And if you're a nice white guy cannot support with your people overthrowing this white domination, this white colonialism, then the nice white guy is not so nice after all. You know, I mean, that's the kind of trick bag that we get put into too frequently. So that people work overnight to make sure that we don't identify the social system and that we define it in very subjective and personalized ways. What's happening with us?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to just say, based on what you said about the Confederate flag and American flag, pretty much speaks to the lack of a worldview that most Africans have, and basically how someone else defines our reality when they can come and convince us that the American flag, there's nothing wrong with that. You should show patriotism and stand with the American flag. But if an issue with the Confederate flag, you must have a negative response to that. It just made me think about the lack of worldview that we as a people really have.
But in thinking about that, though, what I really wish you would also consider is the reason that the weakness of our worldview, the fault that we find with the worldview, is because they murdered Malcolm, because they got rid of Garvey, because every revolutionary African that contributes to us having clarity in terms of our worldview gets attacked, murdered, slandered, everything to undermine them so that they have no influence in our communities. And that happens in the pulpits of the churches where these lick-spittle preachers are tied to the system, and that's every preacher, tied to the system, etc. So they work really hard. And they say that you hate because you try to stand up for African people, that somehow you preach and hate, something to that effect. So I think that part of what we're looking at in terms of the worldview and the limitation of the worldview is the fact that the American government and imperialist governments all around the world kill our leaders who would bring a greater clarity to us. People wouldn't be thinking like this if Malcolm had access, to the ability to talk, or if I had access to the ability to talk to the millions of African people that Obama and Sharpton and all these other charlatans who are out there, or your local preacher for that matter.
I was just wanted to speak to go back again because you hit up on so many points, and since we're talking about sports, we talk about Allen Iverson and his working class stance, and me personally, I think Allen Iverson probably was the best basketball player ever in the league. Me personally, way better than Jordan. I'm from Chicago. I got to see him three-peat and all that type of stuff twice and all that type of stuff, and I got to see everything. But Allen Iverson, 6'1", if you understand, and like Chairman say, he'll take that ball, with just lightning speed and that type of stuff. What was, because I told you earlier this week that that's why I was so attracted to Allen Iverson, because of his working class stance. And could you just speak to that as far as, like, I don't know if Colin Kaepernick stance is similar. I know that Allen Iverson didn't do anything necessarily political on purpose, but his whole thing, his cornrows was political, everything. So if you can,
I think that's really interesting because I don't think they came from the same place in terms of class. I don't think that the relationship in the social structure was the same. Iverson, came from a working class family and what have you, and all of his, homies were working class cats. And I liked Allen Iverson too, because he was not obviously political, and that is to say that he was not ideological, but his stance was truly reflected the militancy and the resistance of the African working class practice, and I just thought, and he worked really hard, and he was someone that was difficult for them to control. As you know, the NFL worked overtime to try to recreate the image of African who were football players, how you dress, the whole thing. And Iverson was just, and that's because so many of them came with a working class kind of character. So they were working to change that. And because also white people didn't like basketball that much because only black people, playing the game. This was a problem that they really had to resolve in terms of money, that they could get income. So they did a lot to work on that, and they had, they sort of Barry Gordon, Gordonized, the NFL, so they have a crossover appeal. So, but I that was one reason I really appreciated Iverson. And I did think he came from a different. I used to like Tyson for the same reason, and a guy named Tommy Hearns who was a boxer, a hitman out of Detroit. They held up Leonard because Leonard was supposed to be so well spoken and white-like, and Hearns was straight from the hood, and these guys. So they work overtime all the time. That's what their propaganda does. These are propagandists. Every time you go to TV or the media, you're looking at propagandists who know what their role and their tasks are, and they would shape and mold consciousness based on what they want you to be. And they would change you from, like Malcolm used to say, the media will make you love your enemies and hate your friends, and they work on us all the time. So in terms of sports, those figures, these figures who are created, they have agents who train them how to walk, how to talk, and the whole bit,
Well, Chairman, I don't think you were supposed to be on this this long, but I most definitely am really appreciative of you you being on. I'm trying to see.
Where's Clarissa from? Out of Baltimore. She's out of where? Flint, Michigan. What's her name? Clarissa Shields?
They won't give her endorsement. She's too.
Yeah, she's too working class. Sister, yeah.
She's an African boxer?
Yeah.
All right.
First female boxer.
Yeah.
Just show you right there.
Yeah.
And just goes to show that, Chairman, you're right. You summed it up correctly again, that you can't win if you black skin and you act like you African, you're not going to win in the U.S.
Well, just want to say that the whole question of patriotism, nationalism, and you end up, if you're a U.S. patriot, you're a white nationalist. And this is something that gives us an opportunity to talk about it, the stance that his brother Kaepernick has taken up to now. Hopefully he'll be able to maintain that. And when you say hold him up, we just support him. I mean, I'm not extolling him here. He's not a political leader or anything, but he's taken what up to now is a really good stance. And like I said, he's done it at some risk to his own personal well-being, his own possible impact on his income capacity. By doing that. So I think we have to support that, and everybody should know we support it, and we should say why we support it. And because there are a lot of people who would say, well, yeah, we recognize because this country stands for freedom of speech, and so therefore Kaepernick, should. And this is coming from right wingers, as well, white people who saying, that people fought and died so that he could have the freedom to say this. So free speech allows him to be able to do this. No. What's happening here, and we have to define what this whole thing is about patriotism, about colonialism, and help him to understand it as well, because people were working on him overtime to try to get him to modify his stance or in a fashion that will validate America, free speech, if you will, as opposed to exposing the hypocrisy of a system that's killing our people at the same time they're having these glorious celebration at football games where we are singing the national anthem.
I got one more thing, and I know Colin Kaepernick is being approached by military people in the military, and from my understanding, he's had a meeting with people from the military, and they've gotten him to change his stance slightly, where he's not going to just sit out the national anthem; he's going to take a knee. Could you explain the military role as far as it comes to imperialism, colonialism?
Well, the problem is that this brother took a stance in the first place because how what was happening to African people being gunned down by the police. That's how I understand it. And the police function as a domestic military force. It's a colonial force. It's an arm of the state. And the police does to us in New York and Chicago and in Tampa, Florida, the same thing that the Army and the Marines do to other colonized people in Afghanistan and other places around the world. There's not a dime worth of difference between a police, a local cop here and a Marine someplace else, or the CIA, or the FBI. All of them are arm of the state. And the state has as its role, its responsibility to protect the status quo. So when you end up uniting with the army or with the military who defend our freedoms, what freedoms? They weren't defending Africans in Ferguson. They went there to help to crush the Africans in Ferguson. So they're not there defending our freedom. That's nonsense. Once you unite with the states, you unite with the states. A good stance that he took up to the point that he was able to be opposed, demonstrably opposed to what the state was doing to African people in the form of the police. He needs to be developed to the point where he can see that that same state is doing a similar thing to other people all around the world.
I just want to say that I really appreciate this conversation and understanding that sports and politics, sometimes go hand in hand.
All the time.
And really understanding, for the first time, really ever hearing football being described as a game of war in the way that you summed it up, really made so much sense, because I grew up playing football and never really looked at it that way. But just hearing you say that, it makes so much sense. And like how you said, that sports and politics are always hand in hand. It really just makes so much sense. I just appreciate this conversation.
And yeah, with that, we have 6 minutes left, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Want to really thank Chairman Omali Esatella, Chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, for being on Africa Live on uhururadio.com today. Excellent conversation, excellent sum up, and yeah, we I don't know if are we going on break, or are we gonna just go ahead and wrap it on up?
Wrap it up. But before we go, I just want to remind everybody on Wednesday to wear your head wraps. And also, African men, you can join in. You can wear a wrap as well if you like, or you can wear a dashiki to show support for our African women. So this and every Wednesday, wear your hair wraps, wear your dashiki, and keep being your African self no matter where you are.
And don't forget about the Impedum convention coming up on the 17th and 18th of September, and the National Black Political Agenda for Self-Determination conference held in Washington, D.C. on the
November 5th and 6th, rather. And on September 13th.
It's 13th.
No, September 13th here. There is the celebration, the discussion around the mural. They put me in jail for taking it down.
Tear it down. We're gonna tear it down again. Uhuru. All right. So this is Africa Live. I'm Timba Shabana.
And I'm Desun True.
And we will see you next week. Uhuru. Uhuru.